and Meg White were known as the White Stripes. They were an American rock duo. At first, they perpetuated the idea that they were brother and sister, but in fact they weren't. They were a married couple and then a divorced couple. Their music was generally categorized as garage rock due to the simplicity of it. And they use a strict aesthetic of the colours red, white, and black, and are best known for the single Seven Nation Army. They existed from 1997 to 2011 and released 6 albums.
Hi, my name's Dan, and this is a review of the album Get Behind Me, Satan by the White Stripes. It was their 5th and penultimate album, released in 2005. And I've reviewed this before. So before I had my YouTube channel, I had a blog, I had a different list I was working my way through. It was only 1,000, but I only got 400 through before I found this list and decided to switch to YouTube. But inevitably, this means that there are a few albums that I reviewed then that I'm re-reviewing now. I did read my previous review, but I do have new opinions, so I'm not just reproducing what I did then. The reason for telling you this is I try and tend to say how familiar I am with something before I launch in. So I'm going to go with experimental alternative rock as a description here. It's not that easy to describe. So the White Stripes before this were mostly electric guitar and drums, and they made a big thing about being this kind of big sound, but garagey. And this is different. It swaps out the electric guitar in the main, for piano, marimba, acoustic guitar, mandolin, but there is some electric guitar in here as well. And a fair amount of the electric guitar's also got an auto harmonizer giving us an octave below, which thickens up the sound even more. It's quite limited instrumentation generally, but it doesn't feel empty because the big sounds that are used here fill the space. This is the thing that I have noticed about White Stripes in general, is the way in which they make not very much fill what's there. It breathes, so it speeds up and it slows down, it gets louder and softer. It definitely doesn't have the feel of being sequenced. It's got a feel of real instruments and liveness. It's got quite simple chord sequences and quite simple tunes, and it's loose in terms of timing, sometimes very loose in here. It's unusual, and this is a part of the general White Stripes feel, always has been, in its feeling that the drums follow rather than lead. This is a feature of the fact that when they were playing as electric guitar and drums, or this is certainly my conjecture, but I think that there's a lot of evidence to back this up, is that he's basically leading and Meg on the drums is following him. And so that is normally the other way around. The drums anchor things, and it's not so much. So it means the drums slightly lag timing wise often. The drums are also, I've always found this interesting about the White Stripes, is that Meg is not a technically complicated drummer, and she's also not the most locked in time drummer either. And somehow in the White Stripes, they've generally made that work, which is something that. So I've often thought that Jack White is a genius for making sound out of these things that could be thought of as weaknesses, but have really worked for them. On this album, I'm not necessarily sure that it does so well, but this is unusual for them in their approach. Possibly the most unusually musically is the track "The Nurse." So it moves along with, we've got marimba and piano and maracas, and then a very strident electric guitar and drums burst through, which are almost entirely not in time with the rest, but sometimes a bit. And I'm not really sure even how it's put together or what he was thinking with this, but it certainly has an effect. So in general, the production values it's kind of weird. I was going to say the production values are low. It's the actual recording of values are fine, but the putting together of it, the whole thing feels janky. It's recorded at Jack's house. The singing's not always in tune. It is always emotive. The choice of instruments feels a bit kind of experimental. He's playing with things and trying to find different ways of approaching it, but I'm not convinced it always works. The timing is often quite loose. The songs are about, well, some of them are quite odd. Rita Hayworth comes in lots of times. He claims the album's about Rita Hayworth and Truth. There's a couple of tracks that have been commented as being possibly having incestuous stuff in there. It feels a bit like somebody who's unraveling somewhat. And I don't know whether that's the case or not. Apparently, he felt a lot better having recorded the songs for this album. He kind of got some stuff off his chest. As a whole, it feels like somebody who's got fed up with. I've got written down here the groove. I don't mean the kind of musical groove, but with the kind of the rut they were in, and have decided to experiment. As I've said before, I think at times Jack White can be a genius. Uh, I, he made the just guitar and drums thing work really well. I don't think he's made this work really well. Um, I feel like it's more of a curiosity than an album to enjoy over and over. So I've got mixed feelings about it. I do quite like some of the songs. I quite like My Doorbell, but it's still got this kind of off-kilter jankiness to it. And it did at times remind me of the off-kilter jankiness of Tom Waits, which is something that I referenced in my previous her review as well. So obviously that thought does keep coming back to me, which is about just an unusual approach to stuff here. So not my favourite. White Stripes album still okay, but not. I think they've done better than this. So that's what I think of this album. I'd love to know what you think. So please let me know by leaving me a comment. But that's it from me for now.
The nurse should not be the one who puts salt in your wounds, but it's always with trust that the poison is fed with a spoon.